Welcome to the Writer at Work podcast. Ms. Catherine M.H. and Kit Boyer are your co-hosts. They will be bringing you updates on their journey to becoming full-time authors, as well as writing advice, book reviews, and information to help you on your road to authordom. Join these authors as they work on their writing careers.
Welcome to the Writer at Work podcast. I'm your co-host, Ms. Catherine M.H., and with me, almost always, is Kit Boyer. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I realized that I'm getting old, and it doesn't feel like I should be because I'm only 32. But I was watching, I can't remember some movie. Oh, it was The Green Knight. I was watching The Green Knight, and the main character's this like very lusciously muscular dude, right? And he's supposed to be very attractive. And instead of being like, ooh, like, look at that guy, I was like, I was treating him like he was way younger than me. He might be my age. I have no idea. But I was not in the mode of attraction. I was like his mom in my head. I was like, oh my God, I hope that he, is okay. Not like, ooh, what's going on with him? Anyway, so I feel like I'm getting old because that's been happening in a bunch of movies lately where I'm no longer attracted to the main character. I feel like they're my son or child. So... So that's how I'm doing. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I finally was able to get my root canal finished. So they are going to put on the permanent crown next week, and it is done. It's all done. My root does this weird squiggly like 3S thing, and that's what took forever. And now all of my mouth work is all done. So.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
Yes. It's only been like 7 months in the making.
Oh, gosh. One of the things that they do in the military to make you like deployment ready is go through your mouth and do everything that needs to be done. And a lot of people who join the military come from poorer backgrounds. They don't have necessarily the healthiest teeth. And so before you're able to be deployed, sometimes you're like sitting around for months and weeks just getting dental work done. Ugh. If your teeth are really bad. So, yeah. So, well,
yeah, no.
They don't put that in the brochure,
Yeah. Well, it definitely impacted my writing this week. That and some of the other stuff that was going on, work related. So, feel like that's kind of a good segue into our topic today.
That's a great segue. Today, we're going to be talking about safeguarding your creative time. Our idea is that we're going to be talking about boundaries and creating boundaries around your work, your creative work. Mm-hmm. We've broken this down into 3 main sections: work, family, and self.
All right, so let's start with work. And when I mean work, I'm talking about you have that day job or a real job. Those are in my quotes in case you couldn't tell by my voice. But so point 1 that I want to make is letting yourself be at work when you're at work. Yes, I know the creative side of you wants to do every second it can of work. And there's so much advice out there that goes, right, if you're in between like making a phone call at work. But maybe you should just focus on work, get the work out of the way, and then that builds that anticipation and fun for when you get to go home and do that creative part. Or it starts off with, yes, I get to do all of this creative part, and now I can just focus on being at work and doing my job. Because if you get fired because you are writing too often and not paying attention to your work, that's also not really good. Do you have anything to add to this point?
I really love everything you said so far. I totally agree with it. I think you should definitely let yourself be present with whatever work you do. If that's working outside of the house, being, a person who works from home or a person who's a stay-at-home parent or spouse or whatever. That way you don't really have guilt as well about missing kid time or missing your work duties. Like you're not fulfilling your role with that. So you're going to feel guilty and you're going to associate that guilt with your creativity and it's going to make you feel yucky.
Mm-hmm. So that leads us to point 2, which is when you do get home from work, shut off. Leave work at work. Don't start bringing that. This is a really good practice for anybody, not even for writing. But let yourself have a shut off time. I know you all know that we have ADHD, so we are all over the place. And sometimes we're like, oh, wait, that thing at work, I can do that right now, or I can do this piece. And then that's going to cut into your writing time too. So my recommendation is have that cutoff time. If your boss is texting you at 11 o'clock at night and that's your writing time, that's your writing time. I mean, your boss needs to go get a life. Like, it's 11 o'clock at night. That's the same with emails. Don't go answering your emails. Let work have that cutoff time. And then now's your time for writing. And that will help you, because I do that now too, where even with my writing, because it's part of my career, I have that cutoff time and this is the end of my day. And I have to move on to chilling out, Netflixing, YouTubing, whatever it is I want to do for that hour and a half before going to bed. You have anything to add to that?
I definitely struggle a lot with transitions. So I would just say that if you have a hard time with, and I didn't know until recently that I had a really hard time with it, but there was some like silly advice somewhere where they were like, if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're a writer, then take all those little moments, like where your kid is eating a sandwich right before you clean up the sandwich making stuff. Just take that 2.5 seconds and just write some of your story. Or when you're in the grocery line and your kid is in the cart and you're loading your stuff up, between the time that it takes you to have the stuff loaded up and then pay, just be writing, get a little pencil and paper and write your stuff. Like, that sounds so ridiculous to me, because how do you even think in that way? Like, my brain, I have to like take so much time to go from like kid mode to writing mode to cooking mode. Like, everything takes me a long time to transition. So if you have a hard time with transitions, make sure you build that into your day. That's, I guess, what I had to say about that.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of leads us on to point 3, thanks, which is your habits or your writing space, or just the space for your creativity. My desk at my house is where I do my editing for my business. It's where I do my coaching. It's where I do my writing. It's where my cat sits when she wants to stare out the window. It's where my clothes pile decides it wants to grow and just keep growing. It's where I stack my dishes. In other words, I don't really have a space that is dedicated just for my writing. And if you're one of those people who you're using like the dining room table, and it is the dining room table where you prep your food, where your kids are doing their homework, where the kids are doing like remote learning, that all gets mixed into places, and there's no distinction between it. It's like those people who say don't write in bed. I totally write in bed.
Where else?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you need to have just something different that signals your brain that it is no longer work time and it is now writing time. And Kit, you have an interesting way of doing that.
Yeah, actually, I write in my living room in my rocking chair that I got for nursing. So what I do when I have to work, like when I'm writing my 3 hours a day of actual productivity, I turn my chair around, and so it's facing a different direction, and then I write, and then that signals to my brain that it's writing time, and it's not like, hang out with the toddler time. Although I do still, and he's not like by himself or anything. He's just playing with his own stuff. So it just signals to my brain, that's all.
Yeah. So make those little changes, even if it's something like I took my shoes off and now my work day is done.
Yeah. Or you put your hair down, or you take off your bra, or,
yeah,
all the other stuff.
Important things.
Very important.
So it's those little things that will really help you set boundaries from your work day and your writing time.
Yeah.
So that's for that. Well, now that work is out of the way, we have a much harder subject, family. Now, I don't have kids, so I can't really talk about it from the sense that, hey, look, children, because like I don't have them running around my house. So Kit's going to take up that side of how to set boundaries with kids and partners with family. And I'm going to look at it as I have my extended family, so my siblings, and my partner. So in that case, Kit, I'm going to hand it over to you and the children.
So when you decide to do creative work and take it seriously, even if it's a hobby that you take seriously, any kind of creative work, you should at some point probably have a conversation with the important people in your household to talk about like expectations. Like, I need to do this creative work because it fulfills me. What can I make sure that I do for you before I get into my creative work to make sure that my role is being completed or whatever. Like with my partner, he doesn't really have a lot of expectations of me. He's not like, oh, since you're the stay-at-home, you can do a billion things. He's more like, can you just make sure that you have dinner at, by dinner time? And I'm like, I'll see. No, I always make dinner. But that's a conversation that you should have. So you want to make sure that you do your part so that they can do theirs. So first of all, again, I'm talking about guilt. It alleviates any guilt you might have about not fulfilling your role in your partnership or in your relationship with your children or whatever. Another thing to keep in mind with this like kind of compromise you might have with your significant other is that you might not want to ask them about your work. You might not want to show them your work and be like, what do you think? Because first of all, if you have an honest partner and they give you honest feedback, it can hurt your feelings. And even if it doesn't hurt your feelings, they can feel very burdened by that. I don't ask my partner anymore. And I think, Kate, you probably don't ask Trevor.
Nope, not anymore.
Yeah.
That's for different reasons, though.
Yeah. So they love and support us so much in so many ways, but we will not ask our partners to review our work because it puts an undue burden on the relationship, and it makes it so that they have to do something they're not comfortable with, or they have to lie, or they have to hurt our feelings. And that's, it doesn't matter how good your work is. If you ask your partner for feedback, they're going to, anybody can find anything wrong with something. So anyway, so another piece of advice, just quickly, have writing friends that you can ask, hey, what do you think of this? And then they can give you writing feedback and not just like, oh, I don't know, like, it just seems like there should be a comma here. And you're like, well, I wasn't asking for line edits. I was asking for, like character development question. What do you think of this character? Does it make sense? So anyway, Kate, you have something to say about this too, I think.
I do. So I'm really lucky. Trevor is 100% supportive of my writing. He will tell me to, like, even if we're on vacation, he'll be like, go write. It's your hour of time for writing. I'll sit here. I'll watch something. Then we'll go back to our vacation. So, like, you should probably also take vacations. But he's very supportive. And that's great. However, like Kit was saying, the time that I handed him something to read, he couldn't get past the first 3 sentences because of grammar or the way I worded something. And he's like, just hand me the finished copy when someone's gone through it. And I was like, no, you're still going to find something wrong with it. So I am lucky in that sense that my partner is extremely supportive of me and has been able to just sit there and be like, okay, like that's what you're doing. However, there are people who don't have that, or they have parents who are like, when you're going to get a real job, or, it's just a hobby. You're never going to make any money off of it anyway. Why bother? Trying to sit down and have a serious conversation with them and being like, this is important to me. It's serious to me. This is what I want to have happen. This is what I'm planning on doing. As long as you've had that conversation, that theme of today, take some of that guilt off of your mindset where you know it's important. And even if they aren't being supportive, you've at least had that conversation and then get to rub it in their face when it's all done. So yeah, that's what I got about that one.
Another point is building writing into your day. So everybody in your household can have a part in helping you toward your writing goals. And that doesn't mean that they're like writing with you or critiquing your work. As we said, don't ask somebody in your, household to critique your work if you can help it. But if you can build your writing into your day publicly, like write it on the board, if you have a board or a calendar or something, or just, you have a habit of writing at a certain time, like let everybody know, hey, from 9 to 11, like I'm going to be writing. So if you guys could just, wait until after that to ask me questions or whatever, then that would be great. Or you can have them help you by, doing some prompt contests together if you have older kids or other people who like writing in your family. But if they can feel like they have a part in helping, but it's a passive part, I think tend to be more willing to participate in helping you toward your goals. Also, it's a really good way to set an example for your kids or younger generations. If you can build writing or creativity into your life as a habit, as a practice, they can see that that's possible and healthy and good. And when they go to pursue their own goals, they know that they can have these conversations with you or with other people in their life and take it seriously, So that's, I think, what I have to say about that.
Mm-hmm. And when you're setting these time blocks, be serious about them with yourself too. Because if you were getting up and going to a day job, you wouldn't be answering the phone of like telemarketers or oh man, I've got to go run out and get milk. Those things wouldn't be happening if you were at a quote unquote real job. So set up that reminder. I love my man to death and I have to remind him consistently. I have a meeting with a client. I am doing a podcast recording, or I am doing word sprints at this time. He still calls during those times, but as soon as I'm like, hey, I'm in this, he'll be like, oh my God, so sorry. So they like setting those boundaries of this is this time, and I'm not going to, unless it's an emergency. If there's emergencies, go ahead and take care of them. But unless it's an emergency, this is my time. I'm sticking to it. People are more likely to take that more serious. With my own family, they take it more serious when I'm like, no, this is my time. Sorry, goodbye. And like I'm hanging up and I'm doing that section. Or they're seeing me build my website and stuff like that. It's more concrete and they're more likely to take it seriously. So if talking to them the step before didn't work, setting that boundary and being like, this is my serious time and I'm sticking to it, will get in their minds that you are serious about it.
Yeah. Not only are you building that habit for yourself, but you're also building it into their mindset.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You got to train them too.
And then that brings us to our last point about family. And this is about writing about your family and why or why not to. And if you decide to, how. This obviously writing about your family depends on your relationships and what you have to say. So if you're like, my mom's so great and I love her, she's my best friend. First of all, that's okay that your mom's your best friend. Maybe branch out, get some new friends. I don't know. But not judging you, just a suggestion, maybe. But think about like, if you have something maybe not very flattering to say about your family, do you want them to read that? If they did read it, would they be like, I understand. I really struggled with addiction when you were a child and I feel really guilty about it. I'm glad you're getting this out. I'm really glad that, this is a thing that you needed to do and you felt comfortable doing it. I'm really proud of you. Or are they going to be like, how could you possibly say this about me? And it'll be a big issue. Do you want to continue to have a relationship with this person? Because if you don't, say whatever you want, right? Like, who cares? Like, they're not gonna be able to affect you anyway because they're not in your life. You can always use a pen name. if you don't want to let everybody know your business. Or you can wait until older folks die off, and then you can talk about them to your heart's content, although their children or grandchildren or loved ones might not really like that. As for kids, the younger generations, it's not. I truly believe this. It's not a good idea to write much about your children because it disturbs their privacy. And even if you think something is funny or cute or poignant or meaningful or whatever concerning your kids, it's really, really bad for them as they get older to have all of their stuff out there for the world. Like if you're writing a book about how hard it was for you when your child was suffering from depression, you know, as like a young kid, that might be really important to you, but maybe don't publish that until they're old enough to decide whether they think that's okay, because that's about them actually, not about you. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're writing.
Yeah. Or you could do what I do, and things that have happened in my family, I write into my fiction. So my fictional characters have parts of stuff that have gone on with my family. But I also do it in a way that you wouldn't quite know exactly what it is. And maybe my family wouldn't know which parts of it is either. Not that I would care. It's very cathartic for me in case like something traumatic had happened in my past and I'm able to write it out into the story and cause trauma for my characters that they have to overcome. Then that's not quite a therapeutic way of like going through that process, but it does help overcome some of the stuff. So for me, I like to add it to my fiction to create more dynamic characters.
That's a really good idea.
You know, write what you know.
Yeah, childhood trauma. You know,
yeah.
Write what you know.
Write what you know.
And now our last big section, boundaries with self. Yeah. Ooh, what does that mean? The first thing we're going to talk about is writing as practice. So kind of like allowing yourself to mess up in your writing. Your writing, you should be doing it frequently, and it should be something you're practicing. You know, you're getting better as you write. You don't just start writing and it's perfect right away. And I don't mean that you write a bad first draft. I mean, you might write 1,000 bad first drafts. You might write a bad first draft, edit it poorly, and have like a really bad finished draft. And that's okay. You need to forgive yourself for that. If you want to do it, you just have to keep going. Right? Like if you're playing sports, which I don't know much about, but if you're playing sports, you're going to have your days that you're practicing, right? So you spend an hour or 2 hours or whatever every day practicing that sport, but then you also have games. And the first few games you play in, you might not be very good because it's you know, a little different than the practice. So those games that you're not doing well in though, those are also still kind of practice. And as you get older, as you get better at the sport, you're going to get better at the games as well. So if the games are your completed works or your more serious works, then you're going to have crappy ones to begin with. And then toward the, middle end of your career or whatever, presumably you're going to have gotten much better. So just allow yourself to not take the work as seriously. It doesn't need to be serious or literary or public for you to practice at it, to get better at it. Make mistakes, because that's the only way that you're going to get better and learn, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah. And when you're practicing, maybe do it on a different medium than you normally do. I type out all of my things. Everything that is important and that I will absolutely keep is typed out. Anything I want to try, any story idea that's popped into my head and is shiny and won't leave me alone gets handwritten. So I'll handwrite that because A, I'm slower at it most of the time than typing. And B, I get to just let it flow. It will be my flow state. I'm handwriting it. Then I'm probably turning off the light and going to bed, dreaming weird dreams, waking up and doing it again. So...
It's a good process.
Giving yourself, right? Sometimes. Giving yourself a different way to practice is cool, because you wouldn't practice, like it was saying, the exact same way you would be doing a game. Like, you're not playing your own teammates. You're playing a different team. So it's not going to be the exact same. And that leads us to creativity versus work. And when I'm saying this, I mean creative work. There's hard parts to this job. Writing in general, most people think the hardest part is writing. It's not. It's the editing. It's the marketing. Most of us are introverts and we don't like to talk to people. It's public talking or public speaking. It's trying to figure out what your money is going to look like, saving up for that money, figuring out where you're putting your next part of the money to help build and sell your book. It's time blocking to make sure that that's all lining up correctly. So sometimes the writing process is there and it's going to be great, but it's also going to be boring because you still have work to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay that it doesn't feel fun all the time. Even if it's the parts that you usually like the writing itself, even sometimes writing doesn't feel very fun. You really want to tell a story, but the writing might feel like it's bogging you down, as you're creating all these cool things in your head, but writing them down it makes it like worse or something. That's okay. Don't give up just because it sometimes sucks. We all have that, either, writer's block or difficulty with time management, or having to market yourself and put yourself out there, or whatever. Like, all of those things can be hard, and it's okay. And just forgive yourself for not liking it or whatever. That doesn't mean that you're not a writer or that you shouldn't do this. That just means that you're a human person and that sometimes things you like are hard too. And we are going to have a future episode about writer's block. We're also going to have some stuff about automation, like how to automate certain parts of your writing process, building habits, all that kind of stuff. I think maybe next month we're going to be doing that kind of stuff.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember what our schedule is.
May might have been like imposter syndrome, writer's block, that kind of thing. So keep an eye out for that. But anyway, our final point for boundaries with self is not biting off more than you can chew. You need to have an expectation of what you can do that's true to reality. Because,
yes.
And I don't know if this is an ADHD thing. Everything feels like it's related to ADHD now that I know I have it. But I think that I can do like 1,000 things in a day, and it turns out I can do like 3. And if you really take a look at what times of day you're productive and how many things you really actually get done, try not to go beyond that. It makes you feel bad about all the stuff you couldn't get done on your list. It makes you feel bad about not accomplishing things. Like maybe, you wanted to, by the end of the year, you wanted to have written and edited your, first book in your 7-part series or something, and you didn't get to that. It's okay, like you don't get yourself down about that. Think about what you really can do, and also take stock of what you've already done, because you probably have accomplished a bunch of stuff. Celebrate the stuff you've done rather than the stuff, like being guilty about the stuff you couldn't do.
Mm-hmm. Because we have something here, especially in the States, called hustle culture.
I hate it.
It's very toxic because it only shows the achievement that you can do on how much you can get done.
Mm-hmm.
And how much you can overwork yourself to get it done. So I've worked 5 jobs at one time before. I felt extremely proud to be like, I work 160 hours a week between 5 jobs. Yeah, that's a little crazy. And looking at it now, I'm like, wow, how did you survive? And sometimes I take that into my writing life. I signed up for 2 full story diagnostics. an entire 5 weeks. So I'm building an entire 5-week world building workshop, still have my day job, still have my side job where I write for the newspaper and have to, set up interviews for articles. And I'm still trying to launch all of my templates for mid-April.
Not to mention all the podcasting stuff we do.
Yeah, so why did I do this? Because hustle. I'm like, I can add this. I can keep going. I did 5 jobs at one time. Take a look realistically at what you can do, because creative mind versus work mind is very, very different. You're using more places in your brain. Scientifically, there's a whole bunch of studies for this. When you are trying to be creative, you're using multiple sections, and that is tiring. It's mentally tiring. If you've ever tried to push out 7,000 words in a day, your brain hurts. Unless you're one of those crazy people who write like 10,000 plus words a day. Then okay, whatever. Maybe you're writing 20,000. But if you're trying to get up there, it hurts. It hurts your brain. Your brain finally is like, no more. And just think about when you're at work and you can't take any more stuff at work. And then you're trying to push your creative mind too. Nah, that ain't going to happen. So look at your day realistically and think of, if I'm trying to do all of this creativity in one day, what can my brain actually handle and how much of time is it going to need? Because if you try to fit like that 7,000 words that I tried in 2 hours, it's not going to work. At least it didn't for me. It took me 4. But it hurt. It hurt, and the writing was not good. I pretty much had to scrap it all. So definitely look at the expectations versus reality. Mm-hmm. And don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty.
That's our theme for the day. Do not feel guilty. And maybe the month, I don't know.
April is guilt month. We'll write all poetry about guilt.
Yeah. Speaking of being guilty about the poetry month, I started a poem yesterday on the prompt, and I was like, I can't finish this. And I was like, I'm going to do it every day. Took out way too much. Anyway, so just, keep in mind that you're just a human. You're just a person, and it's okay not to get everything done. And it's okay not to be great all the time, and build time for breaks, not like self-care, like taking Instagram pictures of yourself doing like some exercise thing as self-care, like don't do the hustle culture version of self-care. I want there to be like a lazy culture. Like what is the bare minimum you need to do to get like to survive? And then like what do you beyond that want to do to actually like
maybe
make
that should be next month.
Good? Yeah. Hashtag lazy culture. Make it happen. So
isn't that just hashtag millennials? No.
Yeah, maybe that's why. So thank you for listening. You can follow us on social. All of our social stuff is linked below. Good luck out there and stay safe.
Bye.